What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today's video, I'm going to show you how to change the oil in a 2014 Sportsman 570. Let's get right into it. Some of the basic things you'll need: a ratchet, a T40 Torx bit, obviously oil, and an oil filter. Now I got these filters. They're probably just a cheap Chinese filter. I got a pack of 3 on Amazon for pretty cheap. I'm going to be changing these every time I change the oil, so I'm not too worried about how crappy they are. I'm sure they're crappy, but whatever. It's a cheap filter. Now, this is not the actual appropriate oil you should be using. You probably should be using a 5W40, but this is all I had right now, and I'm probably going to be changing this pretty often, so I'm not worried about it. And you need 2 quarts of oil, and obviously this is not the Polaris stuff, but I tend not to run overpriced oil like Polaris wants you to run. So for now, we're sticking with this. And like I said, you want to get 5W40, and I'm pretty sure this jug identifies as 5W40 oil. So we're just going to go with that. So let's go over to the quad and show you what's next. Okay, so first things first, you actually want to go and warm this thing up. I'm going to take it for a spin real fast, literally just up and down my road, just get everything warmed up. I don't want to get it too hot because I don't want to burn myself, but I do want it warmed up so that the oil flows out a little better. So let me do that real quick. I just got back, literally just went around my little neighborhood. You want to take your seat off because up front up here on top of the motor is your oil cap, and that's where you're actually going to fill the motor oil up at. So it's a little easier to access if you take off your breather box here. So I'm going to take this bad boy off here, and I'm going to unscrew the cap. That way it will help let all the oil drain out and it's not airlocked into the motor. So it should go without saying, but you do need something to drain your old oil in. I have an oil pan here. I got this thing from Walmart. I've had it for years now. So underneath here, I'm going to show you guys, there's a little spot where the drain bolt is. So we're going to get underneath there and start cranking that thing off. Underneath the quad, you can see this oval shape, and if you go underneath here, where is it? There it is. That is your drain bolt. So I'm going to start cranking on that, and hopefully the oil should be draining out in just a second. Now the trick to not getting oil on your fingers, oh, well, that's not a good trick. And that oil looks very bad. Very bad. Looks like there's some water or something in that stuff. Anyway, the trick was to push the drain bolt up while you're unscrewing it so it doesn't fall out. But there's not really a lot of room there. So, and make sure you get the washer that's stuck up there, and we're just going to let this stuff drain and refill in a second. I forgot to also mention, you probably will need some crush washers because the one that I pulled off of here was pretty bad, and I actually have an old set of these and they just happen to fit pretty good on this. Now I'll try to link down below some crush washers for these things, because I bought a big bag a long time ago for one of my vehicles, and I've just used them for almost every vehicle that I've had. So you can just buy a big bag of them and they work pretty well for, I mean, just about anything. Okay, now that it's just barely dripping, I could let it sit a little longer, but I don't have the patience. So I'm going to go ahead and stick this drain bolt back in, and with the new washer on there, kind of start threading it in, make sure it's threaded in there good, and get the socket on. And when you start to feel it get tight, this is definitely not something you want to over torque. You just want it snug because you do not want to strip the case. It almost feels like it is, which is not good. So that's not what you want. Whenever I was undoing it, it got really hard to pull out, and I was wondering if something was stripping, and it almost seems like it has. Anyway, I'm not fond of how that didn't tighten up. So I may have to buy an oversized bolt next time I drain the oil if this doesn't start leaking everywhere, which it might. So now, just get a rag and kind of clean up around everything, so you know if there's any old or new oil dripping out. Well, you don't want any old oil. You don't want to have any old oil drips. You want to just make sure it's a new oil. Well, you don't want any oil, gosh. Now we're going to slide our oil catch up front up here because our oil filter is kind of up here. So we're going to go around the other side, see if we can get it. Your oil filter is right there. Now, it's kind of in a crappy position, and if you took all these plastics off, actually, we might be able to access it easy if we took off this top plastic right here, so I might do that real quick. Okay, so with this front plastic piece taken off, you can actually fit your arm right through here and hopefully hand thread that oil filter off. Now, it's not supposed to be more than hand tight, so the oil catch is underneath, and I'm going to try to untwist it, which it should be because I put it on there. And hopefully it just comes right off and the oil should drain down into the pan. Now, if you can, tip it upright so you don't spill oil everywhere, but that thing just came right off. So now that that's off, oil will kind of just spread out everywhere, unfortunately. So as long as you have a big pan, it'll catch in all the holes. But I'm going to let it drain for just a couple seconds or maybe a couple minutes. And then I'm going to put the new oil filter on. Make sure when you put your new oil filter on, you add a little bit of oil to the O-ring here. And so it seals up pretty good. And you just want to thread it on hand tight. So now that it's been draining for a little bit, I added some oil to the O-ring here, and I'm going to try to slip this on and thread it on hand tight. Now my hands are a little bit oily, so if you need to wipe them off, and I'm going to have to probably wipe this off again to get it on there pretty tight, you need to do that. I can't access it very well. Okay, it was a little easier to access from the other side getting it on, just threading it on, but I have no room, no levers to twist it. Okay, that should be hand tight. You just want it enough so that it doesn't leak everywhere. And now what I'm going to do is go underneath the quad with a rag and kind of wipe all the old oil off. And now that I've wiped all the old oil off, I'm going to get a funnel and we're going to put 2 quarts into this motor. Now, it may be a little less than 2 quarts, just depends on how much oil came out, but that's why I like buying that 4-quart jug, because for 20 bucks, I think it was like $22 for that Rotella T6, I get 2 changes out of it. Always wipe out your funnel. You don't want a bunch of junk going in there that you don't have to. And this funnel kind of sits right there. Look at your thing, how much you got in here. I should have a little less than 4 quarts in here just because of I used this prior to this, so I'm gonna not try to spill a shit ton like I just did. That'd be great. And just fill this sucker up. Just slowly add it. You probably want to add about 1.5 quarts and then start it. So that's about where we're going to stop at. That was probably 1 3/4 of quarts. Get your little plug here, put it back in, put your airbox lid back on, and we're going to start the quad, let it run for literally maybe 30 seconds to cycle all the oil and shut it off, let it sit, and then we're gonna go to the other side and check the dipstick. All right, shut it off, let it sit for a minute or two, and then we're gonna check the oil. Okay, now it's been sitting for about 3 minutes. Your little oil check thing, dipstick is underneath this cap. And you're gonna wanna twist this thing off, wipe the oil off the dipstick, and then if you read right on it, tighten to check oil. You probably reading that upside down. So we wanna tighten it to check the oil. We're gonna stick it back in there and tighten this sucker all the way down. Okay, if we look, it looks like we're a little low down here, like down right there, so we're gonna add some more. Now that we've added a little more, give it a second to drain down. Take your dipstick, do all the same thing, wipe it off. There's just a bunch of gunk on this thing from this little rag I'm using. So let it drain down, and we're gonna tighten it back up. Now if you look, it looks like it's right there. So we still need a little bit, maybe it's a quarter way up in between the low and full mark here, the add and full mark. So we're going to add a little bit more. Okay, we're going to wipe the dipstick off again and try one more time. And it looks like it's right below the full mark, which is exactly what we want. So I think we are good to go now. Screw your oil filter or oil dipstick back in, and then we're going to put everything back together and make sure we don't have any leaks. Now we need to put this side panel back on, the airbox lid back on, and then the seat back on. Everything's back on. We're going to make sure nothing is dripping underneath there. I'm going to go underneath the quad again and double check on that drain bolt because it was way too loose for my liking. Seems like it's a little stripped. So I'm going to go under there, check that out, and see what we got going on. All right, guys, that's it. Everything looks good underneath there. No dripping oil. Like I said, I'm a little concerned about how easy and how stripped that drain bolt was. So I'm going to look into maybe buying an oversized bolt if Polaris sells one. But if you like this kind of stuff, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the like button if you've made it this far. Like I said in almost all my videos, I have members now, 99 cents a month. Join Athena gang. You can get early access to all of my videos and priority comments. So I appreciate you guys for watching. Hope you guys have a good one. Hope you learned something. See you later.